What is up, you guys? This is All Day Any Day One on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you another Assassin's Creed Odyssey build video. And this video isn't necessarily going to be a new build or anything, rather it's just going to be an updated build, and this is going to be for the Hunter. So let's go ahead and take a look at the inventory, the armor, and the weapons, and I'll also be going over the abilities. So for the armor, you're going to be going with the Artemis set, like normally with the regular build that I have, but I'll also be going over the Athenian War Hero set, which you can get this set from completing the Gods of the Aegean Sea cultists. And then the Artemis set, you get this from completing the Beast storyline, where not storyline, but the quest line with Daphne. But anyways, with the Artemis set, you're gonna end up putting crit damage on the hood, the gloves, and the torso, because headshot damages do count towards. It gives you a higher chance of hitting crits, pretty much. So when you hit a crit or hit a headshot, you have a high chance of hitting crits. So having that extra 75% right there is going to help a lot. And then for the waist, you have headshot damage on it, so that way, because like I said, when you're using a bow, you're always going for the head. So having that extra 25% is also going to help a lot. Now with the boots, I went with all arrows pure shields, and you get the all arrows pure shields from the Athenian War Hero set. And now for the bow, I'm using the vine bow, and the reason why I'm using the vine bow is because it gives you that 15% extra damage with enemies being at a distance. And then you also get that same exact perk or that same exact stat with the Artemis belt. So that you're looking at 30% extra damage with the bow from enemies being at a distance. And then you also get 25% hunter damage, but you get 15% less armor. And then you also have the option to use 20% damage with Devastating Shot or the Artemis Ghost Arrow, and you also have the multi-shot. So you have a bunch of different engraves that you can choose from, but I normally just put the Devastating Shot ability anyways, because that's going to be the one that I'm primarily going to be using. And then the Harpy of Perseus, you get this legendary sword from defeating Medusa. And Medusa is not too hard, but she's not an easy boss fight either. She's probably one of the hardest mythical bosses, in my opinion. But with this sword, you get hunter damage and 25% crit damage. And then what's also really nice is the engrave that comes with it is the 25% cooldown duration for all abilities, making it useful for not just the hunter, but useful for the warrior and assassin as well. And then I put the 100% damage, but health capped to 25%. And you get that from the spear Fox of Olympos, and you get that from one of the legendary chests. Now for my sword, it's an epic sword, just a purple sword that you can get from pretty much anywhere, but the stats I have on it are really nice because it gives me hunter damage and 5% all damage, as well as 15% adrenaline per hit. And then I also applied that 15% all damage but minus 15% health, and you get that engrave from this dagger called Greek Hello, which you can either purchase with you can test your luck with Auriculum ores and try to get that, or you can buy it with Helix and get that stat, which in my opinion is a good purchase if you do decide to use Helix for that. But I'm not saying anyone should, because obviously microtransactions in a single player game is pretty stupid unless it's for DLC or something. And then for the bows, though, you also have other choices like the Eros bow and the Fanged Paris. You have a bunch of different legendary bows. But for me, honestly, the Vine bow and Achilles bow are the two best options. The Eros bow, a lot of people do like Eros bow, and Hades bow. I'm not saying they're bad bows at all. I'm just saying for hunter purposes, I prefer the Achilles bow and the Vine bow just because they help more with the damage output. Eros bow though is really nice because you do get that extra 15% adrenaline per hit, as well as having a 50% chance to not consume your special arrows, meaning like your devastating arrows, or I think it's devastating or deathly arrows, whatever it's called, the death arrows, or your explosives, paralyze, poison, and fire. You have a 50% chance of not consuming one, which pretty much makes it doubled. And then I applied the Devastating Shot ability, but like I said, for me, I'm just looking at pure damage output. Alright, so now with the Athenian War Hero set, the set bonus is going to give you all arrows pierce shields, which is not a bad ability or bad perk or engrave, whatever you want to call it. It's really nice when you are going against a bunch of enemies that have shields because you're not going to be using any shield, you're not going to be using the shield break ability or anything that really knocks enemies down. So having this is going to help a lot. Now, starting off with the headpiece, the only perk that I don't like out of this is the fact that it has 20% damage on Spartan soldiers. Now, obviously, it's going to be great against enemies that are Spartans, but aside from Spartans, it's not going to be useful. So that's pretty much like that's pretty much no bonus for any other enemy that is not a Spartan, which is something I don't like. I don't like the stat that is pretty much reliable or reliant on specific enemies. So you have to pretty much fight Spartans if you want to make use of that. But aside from that, I mean, I did put a 15% damage with Hunter abilities, which you do get from the Artemis set, and it obviously comes with the Hunter damage. And now for the gloves, it came with the Hunter damage, and then you also get overpower damage for 20%. I don't really use my overpower ability with the bow because I don't like using 3 adrenaline segments for just one ability. I mean, I don't mind, but for the Hunter build, it's just something I generally won't use unless there's a bunch of enemies all clustered together. That's really the only time I'd ever really use my overpower ability. I did apply crit damage as well to this, so that's something that I would highly recommend because headshots are always going to be crits, or those are going to be considered for crit shots. Now for the torso, I applied crit damage as well, so that you're already looking at 50% crit damage with just that, and you also get 10% damage with a bow charge shot, which is not bad at all. It's pretty much just 10% extra damage for just the bow shot, or a charged one at least. And then for the Athenian War Hero belt, you get 25% headshot damage and then that 15% hunter damage, and I applied 5% crit chance just so I can have an even higher chance to do crits when I do headshots, because like I said, headshots aren't always going to be guaranteed crits. It is a really high chance to crit, but having more crit chance is always going to be nice to allow you to pretty much have a really high chance of critting on the headshots. And then for the boots, I applied burning rate, 50% burning rate, because you are going to be using the fire attacks ability. And then you also get 10% bow charge speed as well. So that's not going to be bad at all, especially due to the fact that on the torso you get 10% damage with bow charge shot. Now going off with the abilities, so starting off with the Hunter tree, I have Predator Shot maxed out, Devastating Shot maxed out, Multi-Shot, and Ghost Arrows of Artemis. So with Ghost Arrows of Artemis, you're able to shoot through solid objects, and you can also shoot through multiple enemies as well. So this ability is probably one of the most powerful abilities in the game. And then with Devastating Shots being one of the most overpowered abilities, because you can technically one-shot a lot of enemies, and you can take massive chunks of health from bosses as well. Predator Shot is technically the second strongest ability in the game other than the overpower ability, because you do get 550% hunter damage and it travels 150% farther. So this is technically used for something that's more ranged. You don't really want to use the Predator Shot for anything that's close range, because it's just going to be harder to use because the zoom, and it's just the controls for it feels a little weird. So you're going to need that long range gap to kind of I guess gain your control with the arrow. And the multi-shot is going to be really useful when there's pretty much a bunch of enemies. 8 enemies is what you can target up to when you have it maxed out. And it also deals 250% more damage, and it's really nice because you can pretty much kill a bunch of enemies within like 2 or 3 shots of this. And then for the Arrow Master, I got it maxed out so you can have paralyzing fire, poison, and explosive arrows. So if you are someone who does use Eros-bow, having Arrow Master is definitely going to be very useful, because you technically would, I guess, have double the amount, because you have a 50% chance of not consuming one of the special arrows. And then for the last one in the Hunter tree is Sixth Sense. So with Sixth Sense is it allows you to slow time down when you get caught while you're moving around and an enemy sees you, and you get 8 seconds of the time being slowed down, and you also deal 200% extra hunter damage. Now what you can do is, if you really want to put out as much damage as possible, you can use Sixth Sense and then apply, or not use it, but get caught on purpose, then use Battlecry of Ares, as well as making sure you already have flaming attacks active because it's going to be extra damage. And then make sure you're crouching. If it's at nighttime, make sure you're crouching, and then you're going to just hit really hard. You're going to hit, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be a nasty number pretty much. Now for the warrior damage, you're going to go ahead and get Weapons Master for that extra crit chance, for that 10% crit chance. And then you're going to get Gear Master so you can have 90% armor increase, reduced range by 20%, or range damage by 20%. And then you also have a 10% chance that an attacking enemy will stagger. So any melee attacks will have a 10% chance to stagger them. And then you're going to put 1 point into overpower attacks, because you're not going to be using your melee weapons at all really in this build. You're going to be using Battlecry of Ares though. You're going to want to get that maxed out. With Battlecry of Ares though, you will get 50% extra damage with it being maxed, 20% and 20 seconds of the duration, and every time you get hit by an enemy, it increases your damage output. And then not just that, but if you do happen to almost die, you won't die, because with Battlecry of Ares, it'll prevent you from dying. Now, once it runs out, you got to make sure you do get out and heal yourself or something. Which, speaking of healing yourself, you're going to have Second Wind. Second Wind is going to be one of the most important abilities. You can run without Second Wind, but it is going to be very risky. But it's going to be a lot easier to run without Second Wind with an Assassin build or a Hunter build, because you're going to be at range or sneaking around. And then for the last perks and ability in the warrior tree is going to be the flaming attacks. So with the flaming attacks, it's weird because it says melee weapons and, oh, never mind, it says standard arrows. My bad. So it does say standard arrows. I thought I misread it. So you do get flaming attacks regardless for melee and your bow. And it lasts for 25 seconds. And then for the perk, you're going to get Fire Mastery. With Fire Mastery, the build-up is increased by 60%, duration is increased by 6 seconds, and the fire damage is increased by 40%. Now for the stealth, I've already gone over Stealth Master and Shadow Assassin, but with Shadow Assassin, the reason why you want to go with this is because you want to go ahead and go for that extra 50% crit damage. It's going to help you a lot. And like I said, with Shadow Master, when you're crouching, with it being maxed out, crouching at nighttime is going to allow you to have more damage output for any weapon while you're out of combat, and you also have a higher assassination damage as well. And then also, enemies can't hear your movement, and assassinations, sorry about that, can also be heard less. They will not be heard from nearby enemies, and then you also won't be detected from a long range or whatever. And then you also want to get slow time. Slow time is going to help you out from like leaving the area. If you, let's say you run out of your duration for Battlecry of Ares, then you would just go ahead and use slow time. I would only use slow time if there's archers on you or something, or you're being chased by a lynx or something fast and kind of hard to dodge. Slow time is going to be really useful for that. You're going to have Call to Arms as well. You only can use Call to Arms out of combat, so make sure you use it before you shoot an enemy or before you get caught. And then Vanish is going to be really useful for like whenever a bunch of enemies are on you and you need to run away and gather yourself some space, create a nice little gap between you and your enemies, because it's going to get pretty overwhelming when there's a lot of enemies, and you're not going to have Ring of Chaos to push them back. But I mean, I guess technically you could go with Ring of Chaos, but Vanish has a quicker cooldown time than Ring of Chaos does. But that's pretty much it with this video. If this helped you out at all, go leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section as well. And if you want to see any other builds, let me know what type of build you're looking for, and I can try my best to make new builds as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I am also going to show you guys gameplay of both the Artemis set and the Athenian set. And that's pretty much it. This is All Day Day 1 on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and enjoy the rest of the clip.
Spotted here.
Do it!
No leaving my side!